Daniel Jones has already noticed how much of a mismatch Waller, speaking of Darren Waller, can be, and he hopes that the Jones-Waller duo becomes one of the league's best in 2023. And that was a quote from Greg Cosell, something that he had written. So, guys, thoughts on this? I mean, I really think since Waller went to New York, and certainly once the offseason camp stuff, you see the slow motion throws and catches, you see Waller smiling, Daniel Jones smiling, seemingly everyone's happy and ready for fantasy production. What are the thoughts on the upside or the good thoughts on Daniel Jones and Darren Waller? Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I hate to be negative Nancy here, Chu, but I think it's just I have concerns. You look at Darren Waller and you see a guy who had two really special seasons in 2019 and 2020, and he's had 78 receptions since then. And granted, you talk about like he's been riddled with injuries, and he's certainly a person in terms of who he is and how he's carried himself and the trials and tribulations that he's come through to be the player he is today is really special. I don't think that he's out of his prime per se. He's 30 years old, and in tight end you see Travis Kelce, who's entering age 34, who's the best tight end in the league. So I don't think he's out of his prime by no means for his position, but I just don't know that what we saw from Darren Waller those 2 years is actually who Darren Waller is as a player. And further, I'll read a stat to you for Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones in 2022 threw for 228 yards 3 times last season, including the playoffs. 2 of those times were against 2 of the 3 worst pass defenses in the league. So I just feel like the more Jenga blocks you start to stack, the more likely they are to fall. And I'm just not sure that 2 and 2 equals 4 here. I'm not sure that you're looking at I mean, and you talk about how like the wide receivers that are in the wide receiver room or the pass catchers that are in the wide receiver room for the New York Giants right now. There are a ton of names, none of which are truly special. And you've got Sterling Shepard's coming back off of injury again this year. So that's another name that they brought in. So, that they have. So, I mean, there's probably a half dozen names on the Giants wide receiver core that you could like sit here and name. So I just wonder, where are those targets going? How often are they going to them? So could Darren Waller be special? Yes, but it's probably for a handful of games this year at best. And how are you to select those games? And is that really somebody you want to start on a week in and week out basis?
Say shout out Isaiah Hodgins on that one. Tyler or Ricky Falcone, thoughts on the DJ DW?
Yeah, I'm gonna obviously everybody needs to take my take with a grain of salt because I have Darren Waller on my one and only Dynasty team's roster. So of course I'm going to put my rose-colored glasses on for this, but I'm going to zig where Jacob has zagged here and say it might not be. It's not going to be based in any statistical analysis, but when I look back at the 2 years that Jacob is referencing where we got elite premium Darren Waller, I feel like the team was somewhat similarly constructed to what we're about to see in New York, in that it was devoid of an elite pass catcher. And so you had to have somebody like Darren Waller garner, without going back to look, I'm sure he was 100+ targets both of those seasons, easy, because he was Derek Carr's number one. And, you look at that stat from Daniel Jones that Jacob provided, 228 or 223, whatever it was, mid-20, 220s, not good. But I'm here looking at the top receivers last year. Saquon Barkley led him with 57 catches, tied with Richie James. Then Darius Slayton. Those were the two only – Saquon Barkley and Richie James were the only 2 guys that caught more than 50 passes. Darius Slayton next with 46, Isaiah Hodgins with 33, Daniel Bellinger with 30. I mean, this team is just desperate for somebody who can come in and command targets. They have a glut of slot wide receivers, and they really need somebody who can line up on the perimeter. I'm not saying that's the most likely thing for Darren Waller, but it is somebody that they could move out and not just run as an inline tight end, somebody who's versatile, and they're looking for somebody to step up. And quick side note, I heard somebody mention it this week. I can't remember exactly who it was, but why is this team not after Nuke Hopkins? Maybe they are, and we just don't know, but like they're just desperately needing a bigger wide receiver, somebody who can go win balls on the outside. Because we've seen Darius Slayton do it in, quick bursts, but I think we pretty much know at this point that that's not sustainable. So I think Darren Waller is probably set up best for success, better for success than he has been the last couple seasons.
True. If I may, really quickly, I'm sorry to butt in, but we've got Jalen Hyatt, who they drafted this year, Jamison Crowder, Paris Campbell, Isaiah Hodgins, Sterling Shepard, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton. So 7 guys plus Darren Waller. I mean, those are. I mean, I'm not. I don't discount anything that Tyler shared because I think honestly, I want it to happen, and I think it absolutely could happen. But where are these targets going, and how often are they going to them? Because these are all names that have had somewhat to legitimate success in the NFL. So I'm very intrigued by the Giants roster and how they're able to fill the cups of all of those players.
Who's getting cut off that list? I mean, that's a good, B minus C plus group.
Sure.
I feel like it's yeah. I mean, with so many teams where they're either have their alpha and they're looking for their 2, or they have the 1, the 2, and they're looking for the steady 3. Steady 3. Thinking about say like a Tyler Boyd out in Cincinnati, or the one where they're trying to find it in Philly. You have Quez Watkins, but he's maybe not the guy. It's funny that the Giants essentially have a lot of 2s, 3s, maybe more 3s, and yeah, thinking that Waller can become that guy. Looking back at 2 of his most targeted seasons, he had 117 targets in 2019 and 145 targets in 2020. Absolute bananas, and he actually had nine touchdowns in that 145 target season. But yeah, looking at this offense, compared to what they did last year, I know last year was really just trying to survive with the sheer number of wide receiver injuries. Yeah, the amount of quarterback that Saquon Barkley and just touches he had to take. I don't know, maybe if they're spoiled in thinking they didn't need to add tremendous talent all around that room and thinking they could just do at least as good as they did last year, if not better. And again, Darren Waller is a tremendous improvement, though Bellinger, stepped in adequately as a rookie, certainly. But yeah, I'm hoping for a Darren Waller that we knew 3-4 years ago. At least I think he's got to be a 80, 90 target guy. We'll just see what that turns into on that offense.